I was looking around and thinking, no, this is a miracle that anything is here, and I think people should get to experience it.
Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go. Okay, I promise we're going to get to today's episode, but before we do, I have to share the coolest message that I received from an employer recently who used the site to hire their newest employee. Here it goes. My overall experience with Of the West job platform was beyond my expectations. We received over 70 applications for our hiring position and ended up interviewing multiple amazing candidates. We also had an abundance of valuable candidates apply for our internship position as well. Of the West is a great online portal for candidates to search for jobs and for recruiters to find the best talent available in the industry. Thank you, Of the West. Rodeo Life Magazine. Oh my gosh, you guys. So now I'm going to ask you, if you're an employer and you haven't used the site yet, what are you waiting for? The process is easy, it's affordable, and you have the potential to reach some really great candidates who love ag and the Western way of life. And if you're not an employer, you might know of somebody who's looking for a new employee or looking for a new job or looking to connect with a freelancer or a contractor over on the directory. And your willingness to tell people about Of the West makes a massive impact on our business. That word of mouth stamp of approval is the business version of 24 karat gold. I kid you not. No form of marketing beats genuine word of mouth, and it does not go unnoticed. So thank you guys for sharing Of the West with all of your family and friends. We always appreciate it. And thank you to our valued employers for sending in those kinds of words about our platform. It is so appreciated. As always, you guys can go to ofthewest.co to find your next job, employee, or business to contract with. That's ofthewest.co. Welcome to this week's episode of the show. You guys are going to love this episode, especially if you are a fellow flower lover like I am. I say flower lover because I do love flowers. You guys know we cannot drive by a nursery without me driving my husband crazy and ending up with flowers on the way home that I proceed to put in the ground. And then about a month later, they're dead because I forgot to water them or overwatered them or whatever it was. But my love of flowers runs deep. So today's episode is with Skylar Richardson. She is the owner of SkyGardens, Texas, which is a flower farm in West Texas outside of Lubbock. I know that's probably not where we instantly picture one going into business with a flower farm, but Skylar's tenacity and grit and her drive of, if I want to do this, I am going to put my mind to it and do it, is really, really inspiring. And she tells the story of how she first started SkyGardens and all that it has grown to in the last 5 years and kind of what she's learned along the way. This is a really fun and exciting episode. And I love seeing people like Skylar who are so passionate about what they do and so passionate about the agriculture industry as a whole. You guys are going to love this conversation. It is a beautiful one. So here you have it, the one, the only Skylar Richardson. So Skylar, your family were cotton farmers. What inspired you to make this transition from traditional crops to establishing a flower farm? Because especially in West Texas, everything that anybody knows, whether you live in West Texas or not, is the wind. And I personally know, because Southern Idaho has some wind as well, wind and flowers don't necessarily mix. So obviously I know you've got a greenhouse, but where did you get the idea to let's start a flower farm?
Yeah, so I graduated from college in 2020, but while I was in college, I worked for a flower shop and a wedding planner, which I guess they were a wedding planner and they bought a flower shop. And so, they were like, Skylar, you want to come work on the weekend sometimes? And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? So ended up going and starting to work there quite often. And we would get in a ton of flowers all the time. And I would be the one processing those or cleaning out the cooler or doing the deliveries or anything other than actual designing flowers. I didn't do any of that, but I did everything else, it seemed like. and really just started looking at the flowers that we would get in. And a lot of them, either they would, be in the cooler for longer than I wish that they ever were. So by the time they got to people, they weren't as long lasting. They lived most of their life either, in a different country coming here, or in order to get to Lubbock, Texas, of all places, it takes a few stops on a
You don't
plane
say.
or whatever. Yeah, a few stops. So normally we'd come from Houston. A lot of those flowers would, before they came from all their other countries or wherever else before that as well. So we would just end up with some bad quality flowers whenever we got them in, or not lasting too long afterwards. And it made me sad. So I was sitting there and I'd look at, just the name of these flowers, and I knew nothing about flowers before. Like, I was never on the cotton operation side other than like being a kid growing up on the farm. But I knew how to grow cotton. I knew how to do a lot of things as far as cotton goes, or even vegetables. With my grandma, I grew a lot of those. But flowers, like my parents had some rose bushes, and that was pretty much it, because we're not fighting, in the droughts and everything that happened. You just don't fight for flowers to live in the flower beds unless if they're
No, not in that West Texas wind.
It's like, why would we even try? And we're definitely right in the middle of that wind, because we got cotton fields all around us. So there's no blockage of any sort. And so I would just Google how to grow whatever flowers came in on that invoice and started researching. And I was in 2020 is whenever I graduated. So I was planning on going to law school is what I was planning on doing. But the world shut down and testing centers shut down. And so I wasn't able to take the LSAT to get into law school, and was sitting there thinking, okay, what am I going to do? Like, do I just wait a year and then go so I can get some more scholarship? Or maybe this is just God closing that door, and is that okay too, And so kind of went from there, and I guess told my parents, and they thought it was hysterical. Told my grandparents, they also thought it was hysterical. They were like, Skylar, flowers do not grow around here. And I was like, yeah, I know. But I found places that they actually do grow. Like, this is a real thing. And just started doing research from there. And of course, that makes my family sound like they were not like the most supportive people in the whole wide world. They were realists. And then I tell them I'm going to dive off this cliff, and they decide to dive off the cliff with me. So we all started going a little bit crazy, dreaming up the idea of how all of this could happen. So that was kind of how I decided to start with flowers, of all things.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to have to check. Okay, we're 5 minutes into this episode, and I'm not necessarily like the most emotional person, but I can kind of feel like little tears welling up, just because you are somebody who you thought you were going to be a lawyer. You are now a wildly successful flower farmer. You knew absolutely nothing about farming flowers. What you originally learned, you learned from Google University. You told your family, they lovingly thought you were crazy. And even though they thought you were crazy, they said, okay, well, if you're going to saddle up to this wagon, we're getting on board with you. And in 5 years, here we are.
It really is crazy, because the more that you look at it, it's like, wow, God's fingerprints were all over this the whole time. SkyGardens, the first time that it was created, I was 7 years old. My grandma bought me a greenhouse. She went down south. She was going to have a hip surgery. She was doing an appointment before that in Austin. Found this greenhouse, bought it for me, and then, which really, this makes me sound extremely spoiled. I was a very spoiled kid, but
weren't we all?
I really, here we are. But the year before that, too, my cousin had actually passed away in a car accident, and he was 6 years old. I was 6 years old. God's fingerprints are all over it, because, she was trying to put a smile on my face. I loved to garden with her, so she called and said, okay, I got you a greenhouse. And we set it up, and I called it SkyGardens, and I'd grow tomatoes in there, and I'd sell them to her, which, by the way, she would buy me the plants, or she'd buy me the seeds or whatever I need. And then
she'd buy the tomato from you.
She would. She'd come buy the tomato from me. I'd walk across the road to her house, because my parents, they built the house that we currently live in, and the farm's behind. And she lived right across the road from us. So then she wanted to give me a ride back to her house to go eat lunch. But I was a businesswoman, I think. And so I was like, no, Grandma, I'll walk across the road and then I go eat those tomatoes right off her table. So my poor grandma got nothing out of that. But clearly, God's fingerprints are just all over it because Sky Gardens would have never, and I never thought I was going to go back to it. I wanted to go to law school. Part of me wanted to go to med school before I decided on law school. And here we are now. And God just knew all the time. So
Oh, man. Okay, so let's kind of get into the dirt, if you will. We've established that starting a flower farm in West Texas, I'm trying not to laugh at this because I know that it is a very serious thing, but it's a challenging climate. There's a lot of wind. I mean, history of the Dust Bowl. So what were some of the initial challenges that you faced and how did you overcome those? Like, did you instantly know, okay, first things first, I'm going to have to get a greenhouse? Because to my knowledge, greenhouses are not necessarily cheap, especially when you're first starting out in a venture like this.
Yeah. Whenever I went to my parents, my dad's family actually, so my mom's side is the one that comes from all cotton farming right here, right where we're still at. And then my dad's side has owned garden centers before. And so oddly enough, like we have like a mix of the two on either side. And here we are now. And I told my dad, I want to grow flowers. And he was like, okay, that's insane. But also, I understand like what you're thinking. We need a greenhouse. And I said, okay, Dad, like, you're probably right. But I also think we can grow
Where do we get one?
without the greenhouse too. And he was like, I don't know, Skylar, I don't know about that. And so I started researching more and found the high tunnels that we have. So they're not heated or air conditioned. They're not quite as expensive to maintain because of that, but quite the upfront cost to get them in. And so I guess that first fall of 2020, I looked at Dad and Mom and I was like, okay, I'm just going to try to plant some things. We're going to see if it works. And it's hysterical to look back on now because I thought it was going so well. And we would be at some places as to where we had these low tunnels is what they were that would just flap in the wind like all spring long. They would come loose and just be flapping, and it was exhausting to try to cover them up and everything all the time. But we had some plants growing in there, and I'm telling you, like some plants is in like, okay, here's one, and then like 4 feet over there's another one, and then 2 feet there's another one. Like it was spotty and horrible, and I'm surprised that they survived it all, but they were there, right? And so we definitely knew, especially after that spring, we have to have something to survive the springs at least. And then we started growing throughout the year. It rained that year more than it has possibly cumulatively since then. I don't know that for a fact, but honestly, I would not doubt it because it has not rained these past few years at all, hardly. But it was beautiful and it was a good year to get started and like, okay, this can happen. And now I just keep on learning every single time what could possibly go wrong and what keeps on trying to go right, I guess.
Well, I love that. Okay, I want to start back from the beginning just a little bit because we mentioned that you come from a cotton farm, that your mom's family are farmers and you were raised around the cotton farm. It wasn't something that you did necessarily every day, but you were involved enough. So did you have to transition from cotton to flowers, or is cotton still a thing, or kind of give us the ins and outs there?
Yeah, so my grandpa is the cotton farmer of our family.
Okay.
All of his family, as always. So my mom's dad is who that is. My grandma I was talking about a minute ago, that was actually my great grandma. So she is his mom. But he's the one who has still been farming cotton. We've still got cotton all around us. He actually retired 2 years ago. So we are not right in the middle of cotton operation all the time anymore. But it's still just all around us for the most part.
Now you're in the middle of a flower operation.
That's the joke that we kept on telling people. If Pop was telling somebody he's retiring, I'd be like, no, he's not. He's retiring to a flower farm.
Yeah.
So he's still farming. I don't know why he's saying he's retiring at all, but it's definitely not the same. It was funny. The first year that we started doing this, I was planting things in the fall and I was like, yeah, I've got to get all this planted. And I was talking to Pop about it and I'd go ride the stripper with him some too while he was harvesting. And I'd tell him, like what all I was planning and what all my plans were. And he was like, Skylar, you're not supposed to plant right now. And I said, I know. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know if anything's going to grow, but everyone tells me I'm supposed to plant right now. Like, that's what my Google University says. And so it's a totally different animal.
I can imagine. The other thing that I find wildly impressive here is you're learning how to grow flowers, but you are also in the trenches of managing these other responsibilities in what is owning a business. So how do you prioritize those tasks and maintain the focus both on your farming operation and the flowers and then the business aspects of SkyGardens? Because they are similar, but very, very different.
Yeah, I think that's really hard, especially where we're at and what we have growing all the time. And I think that's why I try to share so much on our social media about where we're at and the status of the crops. Because honestly, we never know when things are going to come into bloom and if they are any good at that point either. Like the fall is pretty secure. We know we'll have flowers from August until the freeze happens, whenever that does happen. But the spring, half the time, I'm like, people ask me for flowers, like, hey, May 8th, could I get flowers for like a graduation? I got that message the other day. And I was like, actually, if you will please reach out to me a week out, I can for sure help you then because I'll know exactly what we'll have. Because that's another thing is people want to know, okay, what flowers will you have blooming then? And I'm like, actually, I don't know for sure. Whatever God provides in that moment is what we will have. And weddings, of course, are a little bit different. We don't do that the same way. So I order wholesale if we need to for whatever that is. But in the day-to-day and even having open farm, it's so weird and it's hard to communicate with people who don't live the same every single day as I'm living out here because they're in Lubbock. And if the wind's blowing, 30 miles per hour in Lubbock, sometimes it doesn't feel that bad. But you get out here in the middle of the cotton fields and it's like, oh, the wind is really blowing today. And I'm like, I don't know why it's doing this. And so our open farm nights, we announce those in the spring right at the beginning of each week because that's when we'll know what the flowers look like
and what the weather
weather
is going to be like.
Yes. So it's hard to communicate to people. And then that brings in a whole different level of I feel like I need like an assistant or something that is literally my brain in an assistant so that I can know the exact answer that I need to tell people all the time so that I can't have my hands in the dirt.
Well, I think that's something that is really, really interesting to think about is, obviously as a rancher, I know if I want to calve on February 1st, I need to put bulls in with our cows on May 1st. And that because, but when it comes to flowers and what is going to bloom, it is so dependent on what the weather has been and pollinators and all of these other things that are way outside of your control. It's not as simple as, okay, if I plant this corn on March 1st, I know I'm going to be able to harvest it 120 days from now because it's a 120-day variety. Like, that is not how the world of flowers really works.
It's not. And I think I learned that more this past winter than anything because we have our high tunnels and they're usually so productive at the very beginning of March. And I planted it even earlier this year in October. Like I planted in October throughout November, even into December, just to give us a longer bloom time.
Mm-hmm.
And we did not have blooms at the beginning of March. And I was like, what did I do wrong? Yeah, like we had a weird winter as far as the weather went. It was up and down and all over the place. And so it's so dependent on the weather, which is insane.
Oh, absolutely. So one thing that has been a very present theme throughout the episode is your emphasis in God and your faith and really sharing through his creation. So how does your faith influence your approach to farming and to business?
Yeah. So I think this is one of those things whenever I was getting started, I was, Googling how to do things. I'd take a couple classes from other flower farms and just places talking about how to grow things. And of course, they'd all have like a marketing section of, how to work your social media. And like a lot of advice, I guess, from other people too, is keep religion and politics out of it. And I was like, okay, yeah, like I was pretty sure, like, okay, this is gonna be great. Yeah, it's gonna be great. I didn't really think that I could that well, but at the same time, like, sure, let's try to keep religion and politics completely out of it. I really don't do the politics as much, but religion, I remember I was looking at that first flower that we had blooming, and these low tunnels are flapping all around that first little time. And the plants were not even that great in it. But I remember looking at that flower and thinking in that moment, how do I not tell people this is clearly only here because the total miracle that it is that God put it here, and that in its colors and its variety and its shape and everything about it. And it was even cooler because it was an anemone. And I don't know if you know what an anemone flower is.
I have bulbs in my cart at Eden Brothers right now.
Yes, they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. Really, a cool fact about them too is whenever Jesus is talking about the lily of the valley, a lot of times he's probably talking about anemones because they cover the Jerusalem hillside like a wildflower. And so whenever he's sitting there talking about this is the lily of the valley, he was probably looking at an anemone, which is
I had
so
no
neat.
idea.
Isn't that so cool to think you're looking at that same flower that he possibly was talking about right there? So anyways, in all of that, I was just blown away. I didn't even know that at that point. I've learned that since then, but it was something I just could not keep out of it. And then throughout everything that's happened these past couple years, I'm like, you know what? No, it's a miracle that we're here. It's a miracle that anything is growing. And there have been times that everything has been wiped out in May or June through either hail or a microburst storm or all different sorts of things that have wiped us out. And our first year to start inviting people out to the farm, that was the whole reason we did it. Was we started inviting people out because I was looking around and thinking, no, this is a miracle that anything is here. And I think people should get to experience it right here where they're at.
I love that. Well, and I will say I have often thought the same thing. So in our area of Idaho, we have this wildflower called sega lilies. Not necessarily everybody knows what a sega lily is. So you're going to have to Google it. And it's spelled Segoe, I believe. And they are the most dainty, delicate flower that you've ever seen. Their stem literally looks like a piece of wire, like it is that thin. And they're this beautiful little white flower. And then on the inside, it looks like they've been hand painted in purple. And we live in a really dry area of Idaho. I think we get, 11 inches of rain a year. So very similar to you guys, probably just as far as we are not getting a lot of moisture out here. And to think that something so delicate and perfect and literally looks like it has been hand painted can grow up out of the ground year after year next to a sagebrush. After wildfire has came through the next year, you are going to find a sega lily. I am always, whenever I see them, and they also usually bloom around my birthday, which is probably the other reason that they're my favorite. They are also the state flower of Utah. I do know that. But I just think this is absolutely God's creation, and you can't tell me otherwise.
Absolutely. I think that was the whole thing. I love that. That is so cool. I can't wait to go Google that.
Yeah, you're going to have to. They're absolutely stunning. I can also tell you, though, that I have numerous times tried to transplant them without much success. So I'm going to have to figure that out. I might have to go Google University that. Okay, one thing that I do want to talk about specific to your business are these community nights on the farm that you have mentioned. Community engagement is obviously a really big thing, especially for your business. Why is that? Is it that people want to get out among the flowers, or is it that they just want to get together with their girlfriends or their families? Or why are people drawn to coming to the farm and taking part in those events?
I think it really is just that it is a miracle to have them all out here. And I think people are looking for something to do in Lubbock, Texas. I wish that we were open all the time to be able to have them. I wish we had flowers blooming all the time, but we don't. But it's just really been magical to watch people get out there and they see everything that we've got going on. And it's in the middle of all of our chaos. That first year, especially, that we invited people out, it was okay, I was looking around, we were doing the farmer's market, but really in that you can't see the absolute miracle that these flowers are. You do see that they're pretty, yes, but it's not the same. And so I went to my parents, I was like, hey, what would you think about us inviting people out to the farm? And they were like, I guess, here we go, Skyler. And so we started that year, and we were still building our high tunnel we had one of them built and then the other one was not. And so me and my dad would be working on that sometimes while people would be out at the farm, or we just got projects all over the place constantly. So it's always something going on. And we were like, okay, well, we're just going to figure out how to make this work in all of this. And people are just going to have to understand that, like, this is where we're at. We're at a farm. So welcome to the farm, because this is where we're going to be. And I think that they've enjoyed that part of it. It's so real, even if it is not as pretty as Disney World all the time.
You mean this isn't the Rose Parade year round?
I know. Like, what? Why not? We have had some people that are shocked that there's not constant fields of flowers in the winter too. It's funny. It's just the people that don't understand agriculture for a lot of it. But it will get calls like, hey, can we come out to the farm? And I'm like, it froze last night. Like, we're totally done. And I'll be talking about that all the way through it. But it's okay. Nobody really ever understands. But it's just been magical to watch people come out. And I think that's what they go tell their friends. Hey, this was the coolest thing. This is the coolest date night.
Yeah, they'd probably, again, never believe that this was just outside of Lubbock, Texas, considering the climate. Looking ahead, obviously you are, 5 years into this now? What are some of your aspirations for SkyGardens? Do you ever plan on maybe breeding your own flowers? Are there any new expansions or projects or things on the horizon? Like, how do you, because again, when you're a small business, obviously you've got 1,000 different dreams, but it's which of these can we actually take on, put into place on our, budget and limited time and limited employee time and all of those different factors. It can kind of be hard to prioritize all of those. So how do you do that?
Yeah, it can. I love how you can tell that you have experience with this, Jesse. It's like you ask questions and I'm like, yeah, she understands it. This makes total sense to her.
Yeah, I have a list in my phone that literally has all of these plans, but if I want to approach them in a financially safe fashion, it's going to be a while.
Exactly. So I think clearly we've always got so many plans, and this year in particular, I'm just trying to make it to the fall, not like as if we're not going to make it to the fall. And I feel like this is probably the case every single year because, we start and our spring crops just have not done as well this year. And it's just because of the weather throughout the winter and the spring that has happened to us so far. And so the goal is to get, and then we start thinking about pumpkins and doing different things throughout the fall because that's whenever our best season is anyways. And so why not start doing these sorts of things? And people always ask, they'll come out to the farm and, they have some grand idea about what we could do out here. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And then, they'll say something like, oh, if you're ever hiring. And I'm like, yeah, actually, all jobs are non-paid at this point. So if you'd like
come on in.
Work, come on. But it's definitely always growing. My little sister, my youngest sister, she's 14 and she's got our bunnies. So she does all the bunny breeding and she is the best, but she wants to be a vet. So I really see SkyGardens expanding more in the animal capacity than anything as she grows up. But then, of course, just trying to make new gardens and create new places within the areas that we have and get more things as like a windbreak line of trees. Hopefully one day that will actually grow to be established, and we just plan on always expanding in those directions. But I think really having people out to the farm has been the coolest way for us to get to share with everybody. And so that's probably where we're focusing most as far as expansions go.
I love that. I will say, I do think if you bring on the bunnies, your bunnies do eat flowers to my knowledge. So we're going to have to make sure that we have a pretty good barrier there.
They do. They love to eat the flowers. We don't let them out really into the flower area, but they have like the best fertilizer. So their bunny,
I bet,
has really good fertilizer. So we use that all over the farm too. So,
oh, well, this has been awesome. Before I let you go, though, we're going to have to do the rapid fire round. So these are questions that we ask every single one of our guests. With the exception, the first question is reserved for you and only you. What is your favorite breed or type of flower?
I think ranunculus is probably my absolute favorite. I always told people I can't pick a favorite because of the fact that they're all like my children at this point. Like I'm not a mom or anything, so I don't know exactly. But my mom always tells me she can't pick a favorite kid. But after really, I think probably ranunculus will win out as my favorite flower.
Those were my wedding flower. So I'm with you. But how do you grow them? Every time I've ever tried to plant them, I cannot make them grow. Are they difficult? Help a sister out.
Yeah, they like the cold to get established. So if you can plant them in the cooler times of the year, or in the fall. So we plant ours in October, and then they hang out in the high tunnel over the winter, and then they end up blooming throughout the spring, or hopefully blooming throughout the spring.
Okay, so maybe I've been doing it backwards. Maybe I've been planting them too late.
I bet you probably have, because they like the cold to get established. But you have to protect them. If it gets down below 20 degrees or so, they have to be protected with at least a frost cloth. So they take a little bit of dedication to get them.
And babying. Okay, I'm going to have to go blanket my flowers.
Yes, exactly.
Good to know. What do you hope that people remember most about you?
I honestly just hope that people remember, I don't know, I love whenever you can walk in a room and those people that make you feel like you are the most important person in that room. And so I hope that's always the way that people think about me. Just that I'm kind and make them feel good anytime I talk to them.
Oh, I like that. What is a non-negotiable in your life?
Faith. I'd say faith. God. He does everything, so that's a pretty easy one.
I know that you're going to have an answer for me on this one. What is your favorite Bible verse?
My favorite Bible verse, actually, so Acts 20:24. It is so funny because last year, the verse of the year, I guess, would technically be, in 2024. So I was going throughout the Bible and looking at all of those to try to find, like, okay, let's find a verse for the year. And that was the one that I ended up landing on. And it's just talking about the race being one. So it was pretty neat.
I like that. Okay, if you were a professional athlete, what would your walk-up song be?
Probably Ain't No Mountain High Enough. I feel like that would be pretty excited to like walk up to.
This is giving me Remember the Titans vibes.
That would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool. You can tell my brother has influenced my music.
I like this. Okay, what's the smartest thing that somebody's ever told you?
Probably that you can't please everybody. So don't try to please everybody. Just work on pleasing God and everything else will fall into place.
Oh, yes, that is very important. I think that we all need that reminder probably on a daily basis.
I might be a little bit of a people pleaser, so I have to remember, can't please everybody.
Okay, I have another question specifically for you, and then I'm going to get to our final question, and that is, what is the biggest mistake that you think gardeners make as to why their flowers don't look good? Do you have any tips or tricks or things that the rest of us want to be Martha Stewarts should listen to?
I honestly think people just don't have a watering system figured out to where they are able to get
consistent water.
Because it's, people tell me all the time they get to the farm and they're like, oh, I have such a black thumb. And I'm like, no, there's no way you have a black thumb. I've killed way more plants than you ever have. I can almost guarantee that. But to have consistent watering, then you don't overwater or underwater, which you could still do it like that, either overwatering or underwatering with a consistent water. But then at least you don't forget, and you don't usually mess it up too badly. So, I mean, I think just good watering, a system kind of thing, even if that's like a timer from Lowe's that goes off once a day for 30 minutes or something like that.
Okay, that's good to know. I like that. Okay, now the actual last question of the day. Let's talk about your favorite things. Do you have a favorite podcast or book or service or some kind of life hack, like something that's just changed your life and you think more people should know about it?
I listen to a lot of podcasts while I'm out on the farm all the time because it's just me. And so there's this Bible Mysteries podcast that was pretty interesting. So that's probably my favorite thing as of right now. But I've been listening to your podcast actually a lot, Jesse, in the past couple of weeks now. So I think just always listening to podcasts kind of helps us continue to grow, which is good for us to be able to keep on growing. I listen to music a lot too, but if I can, I try to listen to podcasts.
I feel the same way. Podcasts are always my go-to unless my kids are in the car because they yap and it's impossible to listen to something intently while there's yapping in the back.
Yes.
Yeah, so then I'm a music girl, but otherwise I love a good podcast. Audiobooks, I don't know, I kind of struggle with. I think because they're so long and I have commitment issues maybe when it comes to something so long. Like a podcast, I like that it's, 30, 45, 60 minutes because then I can be done and on to a different topic or something else. Or anyways, we're here to listen to you, not me. But Skylar, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Where can people go follow you online and go see all these beautiful flowers? Where can they go to events? Do you only host events at the farm? Do you go into Lubbock or around West Texas? Give us the ins and outs there.
Yeah, so I'd say follow our social media. SkyGardens TX is what it is on everything, I think. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all the above. I'm not saying I'm as active on all of them as I am on some of them, but I try to be. So, and we do events at the farm, but then people ask me to come do things in Lubbock or all over the place. So if you're following our social media, you usually find out about all of the events through that, or our website, SkyGardensTX.com.
Awesome. Well, you guys are going to have to go follow along. The flowers are absolutely beautiful. If you're anything like me and you are a wannabe Martha Stewart, she is going to probably make you feel a little bit bad about your gardening abilities. I've been scrolling all day thinking, oh man, I wish my flowers, like insert name here, looked like hers. But comparison is the thief of joy. That's what they say. Skylar, thank you so much for today. I know that you guys, our listeners, have gotten some value out of this. This was a great episode. You'll find us back here next week with a brand new episode. So until then, stay tuned. We'll see you guys later.
If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.